What is up, everybody? Welcome to the very first episode of Relaxed and Fast. In today's episode, we're going to be doing an introduction of our very own Coach Joseph Eby. He's not only a host on this podcast, but he's also the nucleus of the entire organization. He's the one that had the idea for this. He's the one that got me and Anthony to start putting this together. So he is very important, and we absolutely love him. Plus, he has some very meaningful things to say in this conversation. So if you stick around, you might even learn a couple of things. Before we get started, if you guys enjoy this podcast at any point, make sure you drop 5 stars on Spotify or give us a like and subscribe on YouTube if you're listening there. Without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, welcome to episode 1. Let's get to know our cast a little bit. I'm Dylan.
I'm Anthony.
Coach Eby.
All right, so our first question for you, Coach, is who is Coach Eby? Give us a little background. What are you about?
Oh, wow, that's a really broad question. I'm Joe Eby. I grew up in Silver Lake, Ohio. Kind of got into athletics. My dad's family was very, very athletic, and so I kind of just grew up playing every sport under the sun. You know, I did soccer and swimming and baseball and basketball kind of to start, and then when I was in middle school, my buddy down the street was going to run cross country, and I was really into the Presidential Fitness Award.
Oh, really?
And we had like a mile run on our field day, and the first time that you could run in a mile run was in 3rd grade, and I finished like 5th place in that out of all the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. So that was pretty decent, right? And so that kind of, and then the other thing is in soccer, we would do kind of a loop around the field and around some of the backstops that were out there, and I was always the first one for that. So that's kind of how I figured out that I was good at distance running. And then when I was in middle school, I had a buddy that was in 8th grade when I was in 6th grade, and he tried to get me to go out for middle school cross country, but you couldn't go out until you were in 7th grade. And so I went to practice for a day or two, and then kind of after that I used it to get in shape for basketball, because basketball was truly my first love. And but I always had this thing for track and field. Mike Powell broke the world record in the long jump back in early 90s, and I actually had the Sports Illustrated cover up on my wall in my bedroom of Mike Powell doing that. And so after that happened, we would go down to our local lake, has a beach on it, and we would run down the walkway and long jump into the sand that was the beach. And then I even had like a neighborhood track and field day where we had a bunch of different events, and long jump and shot put, we used bocce balls for shot put, and so there was always kind of a little bit of track and field in there as I was growing up, and this was probably like 3rd or 4th grade when we were doing this stuff. But as I said, basketball was kind of always the big thing for me.
Yeah.
So.
It's the first love. That's how I was too.
Yeah.
I was a huge basketball guy as well. But you still ball out. Like, we'll see you at practice, you still ball it out. He goes up. One of my friends was playing basketball. He's like, "Yeah, Eby came up there, grabbed the ball, swished it, and just walked away. He just didn't say anything." And he's like, and I'm just like, "This guy's great." So the next question we have for you is, how'd you get into coaching track and field? We know that you ran through high school, ran through college. But how'd you get into coaching?
When I was a freshman in college, I went in thinking that I wanted to do athletic training, because I just wanted to be involved in sports. I knew that I was just really, really liked sports, and I kind of befriended our athletic trainer at high school, and I did an internship. We had our senior experience, so the last month of school, we got to go off and shadow somebody for a job. And so I went and did it at, it's now the Cleveland Clinic facility out in West Akron, Fairlawn area, and shadowed their athletic trainers and physical therapists and all that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of what I went into college to do. And the end of my first semester, my freshman year, I was really struggling in anatomy and physiology. That was a tough subject for me. And then all of the athletic training professors were like, well, which season are you going to take off? And I'm like, excuse me? And they're like, yeah, you're going to have to take at least one of the 3 seasons off because you have to do a contact sport, observation hours. And the only time that you can observe is during practice time.
Interesting.
And so I was like, yeah, I'm out. I'm not doing that. And so I switched to exercise science because I thought that would kind of be cool and that would open up some different avenues that I could still be involved in sports in just kind of a different way. And then ultimately switched to physical education. But my freshman year at the indoor conference meet, which was hosted in this building at Baldwin, Wallace, we went to dinner at Olive Garden down the street, and one of the legends of our program, Doug Brown, was back visiting his now wife. He was a graduate assistant at Western Carolina, and his wife was a senior on the team. And he came to watch her run. He was on spring break or whatever. And he went out to dinner with us. And I sat down next to him and just started berating him with questions, just a barrage of questions. And he was talking about how he had become a GA and how he wanted to get into college coaching, and that was kind of his dream job. And so I was just like, well, how did you decide this? What was your major? Like, had a million different questions. And it was essentially that conversation that led me to, I want to be a college coach. Yeah. That's definitely what I want to do. And then, throughout my 5 years that I was at Mount Union, just spending a lot of time with Coach Holman, and then eventually Coach Brown became my assistant coach. So for my last 2 to 3 years, he was our assistant coach. And so just spending a lot of time with him and him kind of helping mentor me through the process. And so my 5th year, in the fall of my 5th year, I made a cover letter and a resume, and I sent a little cover letter and resume out to every single program that I thought I would have any interest in working for. And was fortunate enough that I had a couple people contact me back, and one of them was DePauw University. And then that led to them asking me to come out and kind of interview / go hang out with their current GA, who now is the owner of Columbus Running Company, Eric Fruth. And so I spent the weekend with him and the team. They hosted a meet, so I ran in the meet and then helped them host the rest of the meet and just kind of help them set up and tear down like you would as a GA, and met with the athletic director and some of that kind of stuff. And so after that weekend was done, they essentially said, like, the job's yours, we just got to make sure that this position gets approved for next year and all that kind of stuff. And then kind of went from there. So
cool. So going off that, where else have you coached in your career? Because we know that you've been coaching for a while. So
when I first started here, that was kind of a funnier statement, because I had spent 2.5 years was the longest I had ever spent anywhere. But now, I'm this is starting year 10. I started in 2015, so we've definitely put down some roots here. But so I was a graduate assistant at DePauw University for 2 years. I was an assistant coach at Allegheny College for 2.5 years. I was the head track and field cross country coach at McPherson College in McPherson, Kansas for 2.5 years. I was a volunteer coach at Wichita State University for a year, a little over a year, but pretty much a year. I was the recruiting intern at the University of Nebraska for essentially a year. And then I was head cross-country assistant track coach at Sacramento State out in California for 2 years, and then took the position here. So, we bounced all over the country.
Long journey.
Had a couple different opportunities in the midst of those to potentially come home or go out to California, which was an interesting decision to make, especially when you have a significant other that's along with you for the ride and all that kind of stuff. But
it's interesting that you've been in so many states. Like it's weird to think that you've lived in so many states. Like you were in Kansas for a while. We forget about that. You know what I mean? Like that's pretty cool. Going off that, So since you coached in other areas, you've coached for a while now, you have obviously developed your own ideologies, own philosophy. So what is your current coaching philosophy? What do you teach your athletes, and what do you look for?
Yeah, so in terms of like X's and O's, like distance running coaching philosophy, it's individualized long-term aerobic development while not straying too far from any one system. And so strength is speed, and trying to get each of the runners to be able to handle more volume, to be able to run tempo runs at a faster pace for a longer period of time is kind of always the core of what we're trying to build. And so we spend a lot of time during the summer, during the fall, during the beginning parts of the winter, kind of focusing on those things. In cross country, we'll have some longer reps at, maybe down to 3K pace, but most of it is, 5K, 10K, tempo, marathon pace, cut down long ons, a lot more strength oriented things. And then once we get into track, we start splintering off into different groups, and we'll start getting way more race specific and into that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. So
and then for like coaching philosophy or life philosophy is just helping produce productive members of society, better human beings.
Better.
I'm a big believer that you're like the 5 people you surround yourself with the most. And so trying to create an environment where we have people who are striving to get better, not only through running, but as people, and using the athletics to help produce those and teach those life lessons and those types of things. Because ultimately, athletes are hired at a higher rate than non-athletes. They're, given internships at a higher rate, all of those types of things. And so teaching those leadership qualities, teaching the self-discipline, all the things that we do on a daily basis can transform over into real life. Well, and so trying to help teach 18 to 22-year-olds how to navigate that is challenging at times. But I think that's probably the most important thing that we do. I can get people to run fast. I've done that throughout my career. The people that buy in to what we're trying to do here get a lot better. But ultimately, I want them to be better people for being in our program.
Which is extremely important. I don't think anybody can disagree with how important that is, especially at this level of college. It's like you're not only preparing us to get fast, but you're preparing us for our actual lives after college, which is something that sometimes you don't see a lot, and sometimes you do see it, but I think it's a really special quality. So going even off that philosophy and, preparing people to be better, what do you want this podcast to be about? What's the goal of this podcast?
Yeah, I think just kind of trying to shed some light on who we are and what we do here. There's so many different forms of media out there, and I think this is one that's underutilized by coaches. I think there are some coaching podcasts out there. But I don't know, I've had this has kind of been a brainchild for a couple years now, and so I'm really excited to kind of dive into this and just see where it goes. I have some thoughts and ideas, and I know you guys have some thoughts and ideas, and I know Hope has some thoughts and ideas, and so I think just kind of collaborating with a bunch of different people and seeing where it can go and seeing how it can grow, but ultimately being able to communicate with former athletes, communicate with alumni, recruits, maybe there is a need for something like this out in the business world or, out in the running community, a niche that we can fill in those areas as well, but ultimately just trying to continue to promote who we are, what we do, why we do it, and see where that goes. We're here with the two of you guys today, but I don't think that's going to be the format for every single one of these.
100%.
And I think that can be a pretty unique piece to what this can be and how it can go. And I think the other thing that I want to try to do with this is create as much green material as we can, material that's going to last for a really long time, that people can come back to, that it doesn't have to just be about, Dylan broke the school record in the 800 this past weekend, let's do an interview with him. Because while that's really cool to do, and I want to do some of that stuff, I think having stuff that somebody could pick up at any point in
Yeah.
time and learn something from is also a really important piece of this.
And then I think another thing that we mentioned earlier is like, we might all be runners, we're going to have a lot of athletes on here, but this is advice and this is stuff that anybody from any walk of life can pick up on, and that's what you want to build on.
And even like going back to when we talked about your philosophy and how you prepare for people for outside of running in life, that's I think something that is going to carry over to this podcast. It's something you can apply to your everyday life. If you're a runner, if you're not, if you're an athlete, if you're just a regular business person, like if you in your career, in your everyday life, I think that these thoughts, these ideologies can apply to you in any aspect of life, and that's something that you do in your coaching philosophy every day.
Thank you guys for sticking around. If you made it to this point in the podcast, we thank you very, very much. If you have not already and you enjoyed the conversation, make sure to give us 5 stars on Spotify or like and subscribe on YouTube if you're listening there. I hope you guys have an absolutely amazing day. We will see you in the next episode.